You're watching Let's with Ayuma.
Hey, I'm Ayuma Michelle and welcome to Let's with Ayuma. This is an online safe space that I started to empower progressive women from all around the world, just like you and I, to thrive with purpose. Welcome! So today we are going to talk about why you need to think global. Why you need to think global, okay? But before we delve into this delicious topic, you know what time it is, okay? If you've been watching my videos and my content and you're yet to subscribe, it obviously means that you enjoy my content, so it's time we become family. Please do consider subscribing so that you don't have to work hard to look for my next video on the YouTube streets. Please just go ahead and subscribe. Next time it'll just come straight to your notifications and you can catch up on my content, okay? But if you're new to this channel, welcome. Please watch this video and watch another one, and if you dig it, do subscribe, okay? And of course, if you enjoy this content, please make sure that after you watch this video, please share it with another woman in your life so that as you get empowered and your cup is filled, she too will feel empowered and her cup will also be filled. Why? A rising tide lifts all boats, and it's important that as you're growing, that your circle is also growing. Okay? Awesome. So today I'm going to talk to you about why you need to think global. But as always, you know what time? Story time! For me to best explain this to you, I thought of this beautiful story that I watched. You know, I love watching Netflix and I love watching business stories in different formats. So be it a game show where people have to, like Shark Tank and Dragon's Den. I also love watching programs like Chef's Table, documentaries about chefs and how these Michelin star chefs, really build their legacies and how they do it, but also how they manage to recover from the downtimes. So there's a particular series that I watched, which was about rescuing restaurants in different parts of the world. So there are three experts, one who's in actual business management, the operations of restaurants. There's another one who actually manages design and interior design, and they do visit, and there's another one who's actually a chef. So these three experts visit different restaurants in different parts of the world, and like restaurants that are on their way to, they're on their way down and they're about to close, right? So these three experts once visited a particular guy in Malta. So it's a beautiful little island, little location, and it's a great tourist destination, especially for people who love, the Mediterranean culture. They love to, the ocean views. It's so beautiful. I mean, it's the kind of tourist destinations that would attract me, because I don't like the big, dramatic places. I like the small and decadent places where they're like hidden gems, and I think Malta is one of those places. I'd really love to travel there. So what happened is that there was the restaurant that was on its way down that needed rescue was actually owned by a footballer, and this footballer is a well celebrated footballer. I mean, I think he's even an international footballer from Malta. And so he was splitting its time between running his restaurant and him having a career as a footballer. And so obviously what did that mean? His restaurant was suffering. So when these experts came and they were wondering, this guy has the money, he's put in the sweat capital, the money to build this restaurant, and he is a well celebrated footballer. Why is it just does not make sense branding wise why this restaurant is not working out? Until they went, and when they did the full-time research, they realized, first of all, this guy he was trying to run this business while also doing his football career. So clearly he was trying to do everything at once. He did not trust that job with somebody else. But also his vision for this restaurant, much as yes, it was in Malta, the menu was too it had nothing to do with Malta. The menu, he was importing so many things. Like, he had the wrong idea of being global. He had the wrong idea of being an international, sort of like restaurant. And this is actually it sets the context for the global standard that I'm going to share with you today. So this guy was from Malta. He's obviously an international footballer. But then, instead of looking at his restaurant from how can we market Malta to internationally, he was looking at how can I appease international taste buds here in Malta. And that is why most of his money was getting burnt, because he was importing all of this seafood from different parts of the world so that he can cater to so many palates from different parts of the world. Yet in Malta, they have some of the best seafood, fresh seafood, right? So what these experts ended up recommending to this footballer is that, number one, he needs to have somebody who's actually managing that restaurant when he is away. Number two, he needs to start thinking about Malta from an international perspective, meaning when people come to Malta, they want to experience Maltese culture, right? And so if they want to experience Maltese culture, then he needed to bring out his best. He needed to think about, how can I market Maltese culture to the world using my food? How can I tell our story from football to my family history and stuff like that, so that the world will feel like, wow, I've actually experienced authentic Maltese culture. That's the global experience I'm talking about, right? So now that we've cleared that out, why is this important? Why is it even important for us to think about thinking global? Well, I'll also share with you my story. So this time around, in this video, you're going to get triple story time. So when I launched my business, Let's, in 2015, I launched it with an eye for youth. How can I support youth? How can I think about Kenyan youth? So literally, do you know, I spent 2 whole years not making any capital. I was simply putting my face in the ground, working hard. I was in the grind, trying to learn, what does storytelling for leadership really look like in the Kenyan setting, right? And obviously, I learned very painful lessons in the process, until I realized, wow, yet again, because before I had another business and it had failed because the idea was too fresh, not too fresh, but it was a very early idea for the Kenyan market. And so because it was my immediate market, it was very hard for me to launch in the Kenyan market because people didn't really understand what storytelling was. So it took me a few years for me to launch Let's. So some people had gotten used to, a little bit of storytelling here and there. There were a few storytelling events that had already been launched in Kenya. So people had and were starting to warm up to the idea of storytelling. But storytelling coaching, that was still very new. And so I needed to make a very serious decision to figure out, really, my heart was really all about serving my country, Kenya, right? And my heart, I was seeing the need, I was seeing the pain, but also I was seeing the great solution. But unfortunately, if your market isn't yet ready, if your immediate market isn't yet ready, you need to figure out where really is your market. And that's when, by 2017, that's the first time when I had a light bulb. And that's when I needed to make the decision, because at that time I was even going all out. I wanted to serve not only just the Kenyan market, but I was like, let me serve the African market. Let us be all about empowering African women. Let's make sure African women can tell their stories. All that. I had all this Wakanda forever, Pan-African, perspective. That's from, I think, 2017. Hey, it was really tough. Again, the African market, to be honest, the African market, no matter how passionate I was, no matter how Pan-African I was sharing this message and all of that, the African market was not buying into my vision and not buying into my story. So then what did I do? I started looking at myself. I looked at my data, something which my coach till today tells me never lies, and he is so right. I looked at my data. I looked at the people who were buying into my story. I looked at the people who were buying into my brand. And by buying, I mean putting actual money. and sometimes putting actual premium coins into my business, do you know what I realized? That the people, my market, while I was thinking that my business would have the classical growth where you'd start locally and then you go regionally and then continentally, then you go globally. Turns out that my business, small as it was already globally relevant. That the people who are buying into my business, paying premium coins to be coached by me, these are people who are in different parts of the world. And there were also organizations that were paying me premium money for me as an African woman, African creative, African storyteller to showcase my awesome. These were businesses all the way in, businesses and organizations and people who came all the way from Canada, from the US, especially New York. New York is so far my best market so far. New York all the way in the States, then California in the States, then Europe, various European markets from the Netherlands to Denmark, to the UK. Those were actually the markets that were buying into my brand. And then I also looked at the people, the women who were really paying premium coins, that even though they were Kenyan women, even though they were African women, what qualities did these women have? I realized that the women who truly were paying for my premium, for my coaching, were actually women who'd been globally exposed. What does that mean? They've either worked in a global setting or global environment, so they understand the need for storytelling from a global setting. Most of these women were returnees. If they were Kenyan or African, most of them were returnees. And if they were local, they had been exposed to working in a a company that thinks global, where that actually has an HQ here in my country, Kenya. Why am I sharing with this story? It's because for a very long time, I had really placed my value in, will my fellow countrymen value me and see my value, Also placing value in, will fellow Africans see value in me? Will they buy into my business? Will they buy into my vision? But turns out that the whole time, many people locally, because they didn't get the vision and because they didn't have that global exposure, they weren't able to see the gem that I had. And for a very long time, I ended up thinking that I am not as valuable, and so I should just go with whatever price that people were willing to offer locally. I actually started my workshops with $50. Like, I was being paid $50 for a whole 2-hour workshop. And so I started looking down upon my value because locally people didn't have that global mindset enough to understand how precious and urgent the whatever it is that I was offering was. And so it took me thinking globally, positioning myself globally, looking at what is the need globally and what does my value, the value I'm offering, look like? Who needs this globally? It took me getting there to get to a point where I now charge $800 no matter a global pandemic. Even in a global pandemic, even in an economic crisis in my country, whatever revenue I'm earning, it's not affected by those things. Of course, there was a little bit of a slowdown, but I am still earning during a global pandemic, during an economic crisis in my country. Why? It's because I positioned my business globally. I started thinking globally, and I looked at my value globally. And that's when I realized, wow, my business is a global business. Let's is not a local business. It is not a regional business. It is not a Pan-African business. It is a global business. Once I started looking at my business that way, I then started attracting an audience from all around the world. And obviously, with time, the Kenyan audience and the Kenyan market started catching up because they started seeing that I'm serving a global audience. That's when some of the local people started reaching out for services. They started seeing, wow, she's Kenyan and she's serving people globally. Wow, I want to buy into that. I want to grow as a leader in the global setting. I want to learn storytelling essentials and tools and strategies from a global perspective. I also want, just like Ayuma, to speak on global stages. That is when I started attracting a local audience and a regional audience. So not all businesses follow that classical growth. Sometimes your idea, the idea that you have right now, could be globally relevant. And so all you need to do, just like the Maltese footballer, is look at the magic and the awesome that you have and then market it globally. It's not a matter of trying to fit the mold of what does a global business mean, having 100 headquarters all around the world, having 2,000 employees, based in different parts of... No, that's not what global means. Global means, do you have an awareness of some of the things that are aching the global market? Do you have a feeling of what is happening around the world? Then do you have skills to offer people around the world who are aching with these particular pain points? And are you marketing yourself and positioning yourself in various markets where these people are at, so that they can come to you and be served by your awesome, no matter where you're at all around the world? And that's the importance of also digitalization, because with digitalization, we've realized that, wow, as an African, as a Kenyan, I can serve people, professionals from anywhere in the world. Even now as a voice artist, it's just so beautiful how things have happened, because even as I've launched my business as a voice artist, I've expanded my business with a new service, which is voice over acting. It's so interesting that even with the same mood of thought, because of the global positioning I have built Let's with, I have been getting global clients. I haven't yet even worked with one local client yet. No, not even one regional client. All of the clients that have paid me premium money so far have been global clients, from the UK, from the US, recently from France, and I've also been contacted by businesses in Australia. You see how this works? And yet here I am, an African in Kenya. I'm not trying to force the world. I'm not trying to speak with an American accent or an Australian accent. I'm simply being myself, but I'm positioning my business and I'm positioning my talents and my skills for the global market. And so that's why I call myself a female African voiceover artist. Why? There are so many businesses out there that are looking for unique, and the world is so hungry for unique. And they are looking to be diverse. They are looking to be very inclusive to the Black and people of color communities all around the world. And because they too want to position themselves in a globally relevant market that is open and that speaks to people of color, Black and people of color, then they do need a talent that looks like them, that sounds like them, and that can showcase their story with their accent and with their story. Just with my accent alone, it tells the story of an African. That's how I'm marketing and positioning myself as a voice actor in the global market. You see how that works? It's not about you changing yourself so that you can try to appease people globally, but it's about thinking more and wider. And if you've been struggling to market your great idea locally, could it be time to think wider, think globally? And this is why in 2019 I attended a summit by Teachable, and it was a creative summit by Teachable. There were all these amazing creatives, global creatives who are making serious money. They're making serious millions. Even, I think it was in 2020, even in the thick of a global pandemic, they were still marketing their businesses. They were still making millions. And why? Something I realized about these creatives is that most of them were American. Most of these creatives were American. But guess what? None of these creatives called themselves American creatives. They didn't call their businesses American businesses. Do you know what they call their businesses? Global businesses. And that's something fascinating that I found with these creatives. Like, whether they were finance professionals, whether they were coaching professionals, whether they were, no matter the profession, all of them considered themselves global businesses, global creatives, global brands that they were building. And this is why this is important. If none of these American creatives wake up to call themselves American business people, or that they are building American businesses, or that they are building global brands, why are we doing the same thing? Why do we wake up and call ourselves, for example, a Kenyan business, a Kenyan brand, a Kenyan, what is it called, creative? If these guys are making so much money, having great impact, launching their businesses, serving a global market, they wake up to serve the world, not just America. Why are we holding ourselves back to think that this is the only market we can ever be relevant in, right? And so that's why I also started challenging myself that, hey, what if I started, positioning myself, even the stories that I tell, even the language that I use, how can I be globally relevant? How can I position myself in the global market? So that even as an Kenyan, as an African creative, whatever it is that I'm offering, how can it be seen as a globally relevant value? What does the value look like? And that's when I started exponentially growing my business. When I stopped just limiting myself to local, I started looking at myself as a global creative, building a global business and positioning my global brand in a global market. That's when I started getting people who are really serious, who pay those premium coins no matter where they are in the world, not only in my country, Kenya, but all around the world. Okay? And so these are some of the benefits of global thinking, right? It opens you up to opportunities beyond what is available locally. I'm sure COVID has exposed us to the reality of this. It opens you up to meeting new people. And what does new people mean? New people means new customers. It potentially means new connections or new businesses or people that you can target or opportunities, right? It also opens you up to new experiences and growth. By serving a global market, it made me realize, whoa, I can't charge my business in Kenya shillings. I need to charge in USD. Why? It's the most stable currency that global business owners are using. So I was like, wow, I've never charged in dollars. And for me to charge in dollars, what do I need to set up in my business? I need to have a USD account. I need to have a PayPal account. I need to do all of this stuff. You get what I mean? And even marketing, I need to start speaking in English because lots of my global audience use English. And I need to also position myself with stories that can actually market and make them feel at home in my brand. Rather, within when they have an interaction with my brand. Also, you get to learn from challenges and opportunities within the global realm, right? So instead of just listening to what does business, COVID relief and stuff like that look like here locally, I started paying attention to how are global businesses mitigating COVID? How are they addressing issues of working from home? How are they addressing issues of, let's say, a revenue and profit margins during this time? I was able to understand even how to network, in a global way, and how global creatives are helping each other thrive and networking and marketing each other. And if you go to my timelines, social media timelines, you will see how I do that effectively. I'm not just networking with local creatives, I'm also networking with global creatives and also showcasing their awesome within my audience as they do the same for me, right? It also helps you develop grit, intelligence, and a wider perspective, right? Like when you start marketing and working with a global audience, you start realizing, wow, you can't just play small. You can't play small. You are now marketing your business in a very wide market. So you just can't think small, you can't play small. You also need to get over yourself so that you start thinking big and aiming big and doing great things, right? And also asking for more money. For me, that was a great challenge, but that's a whole nother video we will get to another day, okay? It also helps you economically with stability and options. Like the example I shared with you with voice acting, I was able, when I started thinking globally, I started seeing, wow, during COVID, which businesses, what kind of business interventions are people really looking into? And I was like, wow, e-learning has really increased, online marketing has really increased. So what do I have that I can position myself and my skills with that can help me also grow my business? And voice acting made sense because voice acting goes hand in hand with e-learning, with online marketing, and I have a media trained voice. So why not position myself as a voice actor, African female voice actor, for brands that are, marketing to the BIPOC setting, but also that want to position themselves as an inclusive brand. That's how I was able to create a new revenue stream. And also, since I charge in dollars, which is the most stable currency globally, my business is still earning a good profit, even amid a pandemic. And lastly, but not least, it breaks barriers that exist locally. Locally, I was struggling, if I must be honest. I was struggling because people were looking at my age and thinking that I'm not experienced enough. People were looking at me and saying, you don't deserve to charge in dollars. There are some services that I launched that even fellow African women were telling me that this kind of service you're offering, it's relevant to white women, not to us, which was quite sad because the whole idea came from me, and I'm not a white woman. And there are so many barriers as a woman earning money. People are like, why should we give you this much money? You're single. Why should we give you this much money? You're not even a mother or married. You don't have much responsibilities. Things like those that exist locally in my country and within the context of my culture. I no longer had to deal with that because globally, I have served people who are 60 years old. I have served people who are 50 years old. I have served stay-at-home moms, while I've also served Wall Street boss women. I've served international designers. I've also served consultants who are transitioning from employment into self-employment as consultants. None of them have ever asked me some of the questions I've asked locally, like what is your age and all of those other things. Are you single? People globally, they care about, can you deliver what you've promised? I don't care about your age, your race, your religion, all that stuff. Can you deliver what you've promised? And that's the beauty of serving a global market. They care about, can you do the work? Can you meet the promise can you meet whatever it is that you've promised? Okay? So I hope that this inspires you to start thinking big, especially if you've been struggling to market your business or position your business locally. Start thinking big, start thinking globally, start thinking, how can I serve the global market with my with my talent? Because you are worthy, it is possible, and your brain, as we discussed in the previous episode, it is not able to think of something that's impossible. So if you're already thinking of your business as globally worthy, it is possible. Now work your way backwards and make that dream happen. Okay? If you'd also love my support in terms of brand positioning for the market that is relevant for your business, because maybe your business is very relevant even continentally, but wherever that is, if you've really been struggling with positioning yourself, and if you've really been struggling with even figuring it out, where can I share my story, or how can I share my story in a way that will attract the right audience for me, please reach out to me at info@letsfindyourstory.com, and I'd be more than happy to have a 45-minute complimentary session with you to figure out your challenge, for clarity, for you to also understand how coaching works at Let's, my coaching process, and I would be able to partner with you as your story coach to enable you to position yourself for success in the right market and with the right story. Okay? That's all I have for you today. If you have any questions or comments regarding this issue, please comment. I'd love to learn from your experiences. That's all I have for you today. This is Let's with Ayuma, an online safe space that I started to empower progressive women from all around the world, just like you and I, to thrive with purpose and indeed with global solutions by our globally worthy brands. Okay? I'll see you in the next video. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Bye-bye.